After deliberating for just 5 minutes, the jury didn't just declare Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle not guilty. They did something almost unheard of in American legal history. They issued a written apology, stating he was entirely innocent and free from all blame. But it didn't matter. His career was already destroyed, his fortune gone, his name dragged through the mud by newspapers across the country. And 12 years later, he'd be dead at 46, broke and heartbroken. This is the story of Hollywood's first major scandal and how an innocent man became the industry's most convenient scapegoat. In 1921, Roscoe Arbuckle was one of the biggest stars in the world. We're talking Charlie Chaplin-level fame. He wasn't just popular, he was a pioneer. His physical comedy style influenced everyone who came after him. Buster Keaton, who became a legend in his own right, got his start working under Arbuckle. At the height of his career, Arbuckle was pulling in $1 million a year. That's over $17 million in today's money. He had it all: fame, fortune, respect in the industry, and the love of audiences everywhere. America couldn't get enough of the lovable fatty with his perfect comedic timing and innocent charm. Within a year, all of that would be gone. Labor Day weekend, 1921. Arbuckle decided to throw a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. He'd just signed a massive new contract and was in town between film projects. The party was in Suite 1219, and like many Hollywood gatherings of that era, the bootleg liquor was flowing. Prohibition was in full effect, but that didn't stop anyone. Among the guests was Virginia Rappe, a minor actress trying to make it in the industry. She came with a woman named Maud Delmont, someone she'd only met a few days earlier. That detail matters. Remember that name, Maud Delmont. During the party, Virginia became ill, violently ill. She started tearing off her clothes, vomiting, screaming. Arbuckle and others at the party tried to help her. They called the hotel management, got her into a bed, tried to figure out what was wrong. The hotel doctor was summoned. Virginia was eventually taken to a hospital, but her condition kept deteriorating. 4 days later, on September 9th, she was dead. The cause? A ruptured bladder that led to peritonitis. Tragic, certainly, but what happened next turned tragedy into something far darker. Maud Delmont went straight to the police with an accusation that would change everything. She claimed Arbuckle had violently assaulted Virginia in one of the hotel bedrooms, said she heard screaming coming from the room, painted a picture of a brutal attack that left Virginia dying. The newspapers grabbed the story and ran with it like nothing before. William Randolph Hearst's papers went absolutely wild. They sold more copies covering this scandal than they did reporting on the sinking of the Lusitania. Think about that. A ship disaster that killed over 1,000 people got less coverage than gossip about a Hollywood party. The headlines were vicious, sensational, and they'd already convicted Arbuckle before he ever saw a courtroom. Arbuckle was arrested and charged with murder. The charge was later reduced to manslaughter, but the damage was done. His face was plastered on every newspaper in America, and none of them were interested in facts. They wanted scandal, they wanted drama, and they wanted to sell papers. The public ate it up. Here was this wealthy Hollywood star, living it up during Prohibition while regular Americans struggled. The narrative wrote itself. Guilty or not, Arbuckle was the perfect target. But here's where the story gets really interesting. That key witness, Maud Delmont, the woman whose testimony was the foundation of the entire case, the prosecutors never put her on the stand, not once in any of the 3 trials. Why? Because her story was garbage and they knew it. Maud Delmont had a criminal record as long as your arm: extortion, blackmail, racketeering. She'd been arrested multiple times for running schemes where she'd set up wealthy men and then shake them down for money. She had only known Virginia Rappe for a few days before the party, and multiple witnesses at that party contradicted everything she claimed. The prosecution's case started falling apart almost immediately. Witnesses said Arbuckle had tried to help Virginia, not hurt her. The hotel staff confirmed he'd called for medical assistance. The doctor who examined Virginia found no evidence of the kind of assault Delmont described. Medical records showed Virginia had a chronic bladder condition that had been getting worse for months. Heavy drinking that day made it critical. None of this mattered to the newspapers. They already decided Arbuckle was guilty, and they weren't about to let facts get in the way of good headlines.
The first trial was a circus. One juror, a woman named Helen Hubbard, announced she would vote guilty until hell freezes over. She refused to even look at the evidence presented. She'd made up her mind based on what she'd read in the papers before the trial even started. The jury deadlocked 10-2 in favor of acquittal. Mistrial. They did it all over again. Second trial, another hung jury. The pressure on Arbuckle was immense. His legal fees were draining his fortune. The studios had already dropped him. His films were pulled from theaters. He was being destroyed in slow motion. The third trial was different. By now, the prosecution's case had been thoroughly exposed as weak. Witnesses had changed their stories or admitted to lying. The evidence pointed clearly to Virginia's pre-existing medical condition combined with alcohol consumption. The jury deliberated for 5 minutes. 5. They came back with a not guilty verdict, but they didn't stop there. They issued a written apology, something juries almost never do. They stated that Arbuckle was entirely innocent and free from all blame. They said a great injustice had been done to him. One of the jurors later said they would have reached the verdict even faster, but they took a few extra minutes to write out the apology because they felt so strongly about his innocence. It should have been over. Arbuckle should have walked out of that courtroom and resumed his career. But Hollywood had other plans. The industry needed a scapegoat. All the excess, all the wild parties, all the scandalous behavior that was happening behind closed doors, it needed to be addressed publicly. And Arbuckle, despite being found innocent, was the perfect sacrificial lamb. William Hayes, brought in to clean up Hollywood's image, banned Arbuckle from ever working in films again. The ban was later lifted after public outcry, but the damage was permanent. No studio would touch him. Arbuckle had gone from making $1 million a year to being completely broke. The legal fees had wiped him out. His reputation was destroyed. Even though he'd been acquitted, even though the jury had apologized to him, the public still believed the newspapers. That's the power of media when it decides to destroy someone. Facts don't matter when the story is juicy enough. He tried to work under a pseudonym, directing films as William Goodrich. Some people in the industry who knew the truth tried to help him quietly. Buster Keaton stayed loyal, gave him work when he could. But it was nothing compared to what Arbuckle had lost. Years dragged by. Arbuckle struggled with depression, financial problems, and the weight of being Hollywood's cautionary tale. His health deteriorated. The stress of the trials, the loss of his career, the constant public humiliation, it all took a toll. But in 1933, something changed. He started getting small acting roles again. The public was starting to forget, or maybe they were ready to forgive. On June 29, 1933, Arbuckle signed a contract for a new comedy film. It was supposed to be his comeback. That night, celebrating with friends, he seemed happier than he'd been in years. He went to bed that evening with hope for the first time in over a decade. He died in his sleep. Heart attack. He was 46 years old. Friends said he died of a broken heart, and it's hard to argue with that assessment. The man had been destroyed by lies, exonerated by the truth, and punished anyway. His career, his fortune, his reputation, all of it stripped away for something he didn't do. And just when it seemed like he might finally get a second chance, his body gave out. The real story of what happened in that hotel room has been pieced together by historians over the decades. Virginia Rapé had a serious medical condition. She'd been to doctors about her bladder problems before. That day, she'd been drinking heavily, which aggravated the condition. When she became ill, Arbuckle and others tried to help her. That's it. That's what the evidence actually shows. Maud Delmont saw an opportunity to run a blackmail scheme on a wealthy celebrity. She knew Virginia's condition could be spun into something scandalous. The newspapers didn't care about truth, they cared about sales. The prosecutors knew their star witness was a criminal, so they built a case without her testimony and still lost 3 times. Arbuckle's story changed Hollywood forever. It led directly to the creation of the Hays Code, strict moral clauses in contracts, and a new era of controlling stars' public images. The studios realized they couldn't let scandals spiral out of control like that again. But they learned the wrong lesson. Instead of protecting the innocent, they just got better at hiding the guilty. The system that destroyed Arbuckle went on to protect actual predators for decades, as long as those predators were profitable. What happened to Roscoe Arbuckle wasn't justice. It was a lynching by newspaper, a career assassination based on lies carried out by an industry that knew the truth but chose profit and image over fairness. He was acquitted. The jury apologized to him. Medical evidence supported his innocence. None of it mattered. In the court of public opinion, he had already been sentenced, and there was no appeal. The tragedy isn't just that an innocent man's life was destroyed. It's that we've seen the same pattern play out countless times since. Rush to judgment, trial by media. Facts don't matter when the narrative is too good to pass up. Arbuckle was Hollywood's first victim of this machine, but he definitely wasn't the last. His story is a reminder that sometimes the real crime isn't what happened in that hotel room. It's what happened afterward, when truth became optional and destroying someone's life became entertainment.